basically, it's a metaphor, more to show you that in negotiation and also in the discussions, it's sometimes like opening up to like the needs of the other person, like opens up to more possibilities and opportunities. So having this mindset shift of like looking for the win-win and not having this combat mentality. So especially when you caught off guard, when you're like getting more like emotional, we tend like to be like more in this combat mentality, the win-lose, the zero-sum game. And so the real enemy is not the person in front of you, but the combat mentality itself. So combat the combat mentality. So basically, it's I'm sure you've been into fights at work or in the professional environment or at home, and we get cornered into that combat mentality. So today we're going to discuss how to get out of it through some techniques. We're going to go through the non-violent communication.
Great.
So, yeah, can you relate to that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
You see this all the time. Yeah,
Yes.
but yeah, I mean, generally from my side, I do try to look for win-win. Not, it depends on the circumstances, though. There's definitely somewhere there's only going to be one person who's going to win.
Yeah, and do you feel sometimes like you struggle? Yeah, oh, yes, one person. Yes, exactly. That's the one that knows how to push your buttons a bit more than the others.
Yeah.
And do you feel that with this one person, like you lose this this win-win mentality, like that you feel that you get cornered, your buttons get pushed, and then you go into the combat mentality, the zero-sum game?
Yeah, you're right. It does depend on who it could be and the context. And I guess usually it's more about if something within me is triggered, and then that capacity to look for the win-win is switched off.
Yeah, I agree. So, Rami, how do you do it? Like when you are in this mindset, frame of mind, like, and you realize that you are, or I don't know if it's conscious that, oh, I feel like I'm in this win-lose mentality, combat mentality. Do you do things on purpose to help you get out of it, or you just let go and just start the fight?
Well, I guess before I would have just dived into it, but the more I've learned, I'll if I have the time, right? If it's something which is not in the moment, I'll try and just do some practice and take some deep breaths. And sometimes, if it's really a challenging one, I'll try and look at it from a third person's perspective. So try and play out the situation and observe both, to see if that's different, and even step into the shoes of the other. Not always easy. But even yeah, it's just one example. But I don't do that all the time, believe
me. Yeah. So understanding the other person point of view, like stepping in their shoes. You mentioned some breathing techniques, like calm down, basically. Okay, perfect. Thank you for that, Yanti.
I usually have a combat mentality. So it's funny that this topic came up because I just had a coaching session on this. So yeah, what I didn't realize, because I do have a combat mentality when somebody says something rough, and then I just take it really differently. My perception of it, oh, he's implying this, therefore it must be this. So yeah, but I've realized that I can utilize my coaching skills to have a win-win.
Oh, perfect. So you project your own subjectivity, your own vision of the world onto them.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Basically do a coaching session.
Yeah. So interpreting things from your point of view, basically. Yeah. Perfect. Your own filters of the world. Yes, that's one of the topics also. Richa, anything on your side? Like, are you like combating? Are you...
With most of the people, I'm not. With most of the people, I'm like, okay, let's find a win-win. But yes, it happens with one person who has really, or maybe not one, 2, 3 people, who really have in past tried to get it all their way.
Yeah.
And that is where, so I did an activity with myself a few days back. In my diary, I wrote, okay, this is this is the behavior of this person that pushes me in that mode of wanting to win the conversation, or actually scaring me more.
Yeah. So the activity was looking when does this person push your button, basically, when they do the
what behaviors push my buttons. And what I did was, whose problem is that? The behavior is that person's problem. What they are feeling.
Yeah.
And then what is my problem? So I wrote, what is my problem? If that is the behavior, what problem could it cause to me? How it could influence me or people around me. And then I wrote, to counter that problem that I have, what can I do? So to really understand where I have.
No, very interesting. Thank you for that. That's a very good exercise that we can do. And thank you all for sharing, for the honesty on this topic. So as we saw with the orange, and like we just discussed today, that's the Thomas-Kilmann conflict mode. So we can either be like collaborating, or more like compromising, competing. So here on this matrix, it's like a two-dimension matrix. You can see for you how important it is relationship. Is it not very important, the relationship? So you're willing to compete, or like to avoid the discussion? Or is it very important, the relationship, and then you're more into this collaborating or accommodating mode? And on the other scale is like importance of achieving your goal. How important it is for you to achieve your goal. I want to achieve my goal. So if you're like competing, like I'm competing, I want to achieve my goal, I don't care about the other person, the relationship. So I'm competing, I'm very much into this win-lose mentality. It's very important for me to achieve my goal. I still value the relationship. So we are in this collaborating mode, in this win-win mindset. Now, if it's not important to achieve your goal, you don't really care about achieving it. The relationship is not important, so you're avoiding the problem. You just avoid the problem. I would say also, like when we have like a tendency to avoid conflicts, we can also be in there. And so when it's not important to achieve your goal, but still the relationship is important, then you can be in the win-lose mentality. That would be more like the lose-win mentality. You are the one losing, and you let the other person win. So I'm accommodating. I'm okay to lose. I don't really care about my goal, and I let them win. And in the middle, you have a compromise that is a mix of all that. On the importance of the relationship and importance of achieving your goal. So I love what is on the top right. Winning is not a realistic outcome. And I agree. So winning is not a realistic outcome, and that we should remind ourselves that it's not about winning, and that if we corner ourselves and the discussion into this just win-win, like a win-lose mentality, then it's not a realistic outcome, because the other person is unlikely to accept a losing end of that. So unless we go into this win-win, like the orange, and we understand each other perspective, and that there's more to win. In negotiation, we often said like it's not about sharing the pie, but it's more about expanding the pie. So for example, when you are negotiating a salary, it's not about like only looking at the salary, but how can I expand the negotiation to perks or to other levels of negotiation. So I would say like a good negotiator is most looking at how to expand that pie, like how not to just to be like negotiating about one orange. You have one orange and like half or 1-0, or looking beyond that, and observing, understanding the other person. So having this constructive mindset, the win-win mindset. Does that make any sense, or any comments on that? Yeah. So that's the Thomas-Kilmann conflict mode. So it's always this mindset shift and reminder, like, okay, I see now I'm getting into the combat mentality. And also like going into combat mentality, you're tapping on the reptilian brain, which is not the smartest brain that we have. So as you may know, when we go into those fights, we're not the smartest. So the technique we're going to cover today is a non-violent communication. It was developed by the psychologist Marshall Rosenberg in the late 60s. And the objective of that technique is to seek harmony. So in relationship and at workplace, so more like personal and professional both. It's not a technique to end disagreement, but more a technique to increase your empathy, to improve your quality of life for yourself and for the other people around you. It's also called compassionate communication or collaborative communication. So it's really about empathy and improving the quality of life that you can imagine. Like when you were saying you have one person pushing your button, you can imagine how it can help going beyond that combat mentality. So here we get in the jigs of the non-violent communication. So you have two persons. One is in the NVC world, so non-violent communication world, and the other one is like not being into that world and not understanding that world. So we're going to go through those steps one by one, so you can see 4 steps, and I'm going to go deeper into those, explaining how we do that. So the first thing is like observation. Rami also mentioned that. So observing like the facts, not interpreting, like not generalizing, and more understanding what's happening with the facts, instead of like having your subjectivity layered onto that. And the other person that is not in the NVC world would be like interpreting and judging, so and so it's about going back to facts. The second aspect of that is feelings. So express your feelings. Again, how do you express your feelings without any judgment and with empathy for the other person, compared to not feeling connected and losing that connection? We saw in the Matrix how important it is for you to respect the relationship, to be in that win-win mindset, and so respect the relationship, respect the other person and their feelings. So your own feelings, the other person's feelings. So we're going to go through that. The needs, so understanding the needs, your own needs and the other person's needs, instead of being in the strategy mode. And also, how do you make your request instead of demanding? So how do you make this request, again with empathy? So we're going to go through that, and it's very simple tips. So the psychologist Rosenberg, he was using the metaphors of the giraffe and the jackal. So the jackal is a carnivore animal, as a symbol of aggression and dominance. So dominating and aggressive. Compared to the giraffe, she's herbivore. She has this long neck, and so she's with this long neck, she can see, she can be clear-sighted of what's happening, of the facts, of the speaker. I think someone is joining. No. Do I see someone joining? More. I saw on the chat. Okay, that's my friend. Sorry. Yes. Yes. Up. I'll put the chat here so I can see it up. And so basically, so we're mentioning the giraffe up. And so the giraffe is clear-sighted, being aware of the fellow speaker's reactions, and being with a big heart, so representing the compassionate side of non-violent communication. So when you are communicating, when you are negotiating, or are you more this jackal, being aggressive and dominant, or are you more this kind-hearted giraffe, clear-sighted giraffe. So that's a metaphor from the original model of the psychologist Rosenberg. So if you have two people in the non-violent communication mode, if both of them are in that, so again, observation, feelings, needs, and requests. So we're going to go through that. So on the observation, it's about the facts, the feelings. So it's my feeling and the other person's feelings, my needs and the other person needs, my requests and the other person requests. And we're going to go through those 4 steps and also through the what we call the non-violent communication mode. So self-empathy, empathic listening, empathic expression. And so we're going to go through that. Then it's about like the connection and the action. So how do you drive the action and the willingness to contribute to the well-being of all counterparts? So keeping that connection. So talking about the facts, which is the first step of the 4 elements, I would say, of NVC. So often, so when we use words, we are being too ambiguous. And so it's about communicating in the least ambiguous style as you can. So if you say like you are too generous or you are stubborn or any judgment that can be very generic. So it's according to who and what is your benchmark basically. So it's more like, okay, when you do that, when you are doing that, I think that, so might be, I feel that, so it's very much like going back into like being very fact based. So those are other examples, like you always procrastinate. So again, so according to what benchmark. So it's more like when you do that, when you have to deliver, when you had to deliver this document last time, you did it last minute. And avoid like a generalization, like you always do that, so you can say the last 2 times or the last 3 times. So on that day, you did that. So being very specific instead of you always do that, you never take care of the house, or you never do the dishes. So more like being more specific. The more specific you are, the less inclined the other person will deny, not understand you, and react in a negative way. So those are other examples. If you don't do that, you will. So if you don't eat balanced meals, your health will be impaired. And so here, if when you say that, it's like a direct connection, and so it means that it's very certain, and there's no way out of this cause to effect, so origin to conclusion. So basically, if it's more like if you don't do that, I'm scared that, or I feel that, I think that. So like showing that it's more like your own interpretation, and the rest is the same. Yes. Okay. So that's more on the fact base. Okay. So avoiding generalization, avoiding shortcuts, so and being very fact-based. So that's a good example of it, So instead of saying you always arrive late, you said like, when you arrive 1 hour late on Tuesday, I felt hurt and I felt you were not respecting me, So again, like going back to one fact, 1, 2, or 3 facts, but not like, oh, you're always late. That's annoying, So, and it's about, so the first sentence is about observation, like a fact, and the second sentence in red is about your feelings. So again, your feelings are your own truth, and you're allowed to feel whatever you want to feel, So that's a bit tougher to be challenged by the person in front of you. So I think it's one of the best tips here. So when you do that, so observation like facts, I feel that. Okay. And so it's about expressing your feelings. So feelings reflect whether our needs are met or unmet. And so also identifying feelings helps you connect with the other person and allows you to be more vulnerable by expressing your feelings. Does that make sense? Any questions here?
Yes, it makes sense.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So now we jump into the third one, which are the needs. I love this one also. So I don't know if you know, there are different ways of looking at needs. There's the Maslow pyramid. I'm sure you've seen that with the basic needs. So I won't go through that. I love this model. It's the 6 human needs from Tony Robbins. And I love it because it's explaining how they can be, we have all those needs, more or less for each person. But the problem is that those needs can be antagonists, and even within ourselves. So for me, so I'll go through the needs and then I'll explain the paradox within those needs. So we have a need of certainty. We want to have a roof above our head, to have a relationship we can trust, to have a job, to have kids that are healthy. But at the same time, we want variety. So we want challenge. We want to explore the world. We want everything that is new, like that's exciting. Let's try a new, to explore a new restaurant, a new country. So that's a need of variety. Then we have this need of significance. So I want to be significant. I want that in my job, like people know who I am, that I'm valued, that in the family space also, I want to be significant. It means that I want to have a place and that I want to be known for my value. So shining, like a leader, like I'm significant. And also I want this connection. I want love. I want to feel connected to other people. So that the 4 needs of personality. And you also have needs of the spirit. So I want to feel that I'm growing. I want to feel that I'm learning. So when you are managing someone, that's a need that is very important. That I'm always learning, that I'm growing every day. And that's because of that need that you are here today, because you want to learn, that you want to grow. And that being here today is fulfilling this need. But I want also to contribute. So being a coach is helping with that. So I'm contributing to this world. I'm making this world a better place. It's extremely rewarding to be coaching someone and feeling that I have an impact on their well-being, on their lives. It's super rewarding for me to give this training today and feeling that I have an impact and helping you in this journey. So those are the 6 human needs. Would you know which one is your biggest need that you would say like today? What is this biggest need for you? Do you have one that is more relevant, like more prominent?
I think in the COVID context, connection is really important.
Yeah, the need of connection.
Although you have connection, I have, and I'm lucky with that connection and love within my immediate family. Obviously, then there's the wider connection as we're social animals, which is not as, it's okay in Singapore, actually. It's a lot better than many places, but still. That's one. But I can see this paradox of significance because that's more the personal drive to do things, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just a question, actually. There's nothing about abundance or wealth. I think that's interesting.
So no, there's nothing about that, but more like when you have a need of wealth, why do you have this need of wealth usually? It's it's one level above or below that, like I think like getting deeper. So Rami, let's say you want to be wealthy. Why do you want to be wealthy?
Well, it's probably all of these in a way. Of course, it provides certainty from a financial perspective, although you can be comfortable and earn something and that, but then I guess if you want more variety, you want more options, more choice, then that's the driver.
Yeah.
Significance is, yeah, it's a reflection of personal achievement.
Yeah.
Connection, love, well, that's an argument. I don't think so, but you know, it can maybe,
yeah,
maybe some aspects of that.
Yeah.
I guess Reach is the expert. She might have a view.
So Richa, what Rami is asking, so when you want to be wealthy, what is the underlying needs, do you think?
There are actually several underlying needs. Actually, one could be the need for significance.
Yeah.
Which is for a lot of people, because they relate self-worth to money.
Yeah.
So then being wealthy becomes that kind of need where you really want to have control over the amount of money.
Yeah.
Or a big amount of money. It doesn't matter whether you are donating it or whether you are spending it, but it's the need.
Yeah, so that's true. That could be significance, and I think Rami was right. So basically, it's depend on the person, and so that's more the underlying need. Some people, they go for it for love. Some people, they go for it for variety, for certainty. So that could be a bit of everything. Yeah? Would you agree, Arisha?
Yes, but as far as I know, for most of the people, one or two of these dominate.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I was asking. So for you, what is your biggest need? So Risha, what would it be for you when you look at that? Is there one like, so Rami was mentioning connection and love. Which one would it be for you?
Today, if you ask, okay, just today, what is your top need? It's growth.
Growth? Perfect. Yeah. Okay. Yes. A good self-awareness. And for you, Yanti, which one would that be?
Growth also.
Growth? Okay, perfect. So there's no value of judgment. It's more like each of us are different and have like more priority. And you said it correctly. Today it can be something and tomorrow it can be something else. My favorite TED talk ever is from Esther Perel. She's, I think she's French, but she speaks in English. She's a psychologist, and she explains how impossible it is to, like when you look at a couple. So she's specialized on the relationships, especially on couples, on romance. And so when she's talking about couples, she's saying basically when you are in a couple, you have both this need of certainty and this need of variety. So you have this need of like again, I need to have like a relationship I can trust, something that is here for someone that is here for me, that I come back to my place and everything is here. And at the same time, in that same person, I'm asking, please provide variety, provide fun, provide like exploration. And some people they give up on that because they're thinking like unconsciously asking those two with one person is impossible. And being French, she was mentioning some people they go like they ask for one person to be certainty, and then maybe the mistress to be, or the, I don't know the equivalent for men, but to provide variety. You know? So I feel it's quite interesting to have that self-awareness and realize that in a relationship we're asking for both, and that it's like a paradox and like almost the two opposite, but still we want both. You know, we want certainty and variety. You know? And same with the significance and connection, as Rami was mentioning. Connection. So I feel you can understand this paradox. Like for example, when you are working hard, like you feel like you want to achieve something in this world because you want to feel significant, but at the same time you have this need of love and connection. And so you feel torn between this need of like I want to succeed, I want to be the best at my job, but at the same time when I'm at work, I'm giving up a bit on my family and the connection and love that I could give them and receive from them. So I would highly recommend to watch the Esther Perel YouTube videos. There are two that I love. I can share them on the on the chat, and it's very eye-opening. and even seeing them a few times, I keep watching them. Any comments on that? Can you feel this paradox also?
See, where I felt this paradox, or I feel the paradox most with the people I have started working with, because I've just recently started working on coaching. When you draw or you make your wheel of life, so the satisfaction level in different areas, that actually is dependent on one or two more of these needs. And that's where you keep sort of trading one for other, because as you said, it's a paradox. So all 8 parameters are never going to be high. That's how the balance is maintained, or everything is like sort of average. So then you can have all of them together. That's where I see this paradox connecting or affecting the most.
So it's already a paradox within us. So expressing those needs, understanding, like, so you have this paradox within you. Then it's like, are you self-aware of that paradox? And then expressing it, it's like another layer. So you can see how there can be like huge conflicts within you, with other people, and that's super like deep and unconscious at the same time. So a recipe for disaster if you're not aware of that. And so feel free to share that with your clients. Yanti, I remember you were telling me about a client that was in a similar situation that Risha was mentioning with the Wheel of Life.
That is correct.
Yeah. So basically the person, and also that's very common. And so people come with a career problem. They're super like go-getters, like super high achievers. So they want their career to be even better. And then you do the Wheel of Life. You take a step back, and that's why it's good to start with the wheel when you do a coaching. When they do the Wheel of Life, they realize, oh, the romance part, I've completely forgotten about it, like unconsciously often, and maybe that's a good exercise to reshift priorities. So yes. And so most conflicts, so we said like most conflicts between individuals or group, they arise from this miscommunication about human needs. So we mentioned that those conflicts within you, you're not even aware of them. They are there. You have those needs. You don't even understand what's happening within you, and communicating them, it's even like one step further. So raising the self-awareness on that and expressing those needs with the other person. Okay. So we've done so we've done 3 steps of the 4 of the NVC. Before going back to them, I wanted to go to the what we call the modes, the non-violent communication mode. So there are 3: self-empathy, receive empathically, express honestly. But I wanted also to talk with you about check your intentions, which I think is quite important. So when you arrive into, when you prepare a discussion or where you are cornered and you get into that discussion, check your own like self-awareness. What is your intention? Are you like centered, open, relaxed, curious, willing to connect, having this empathy with the other person, like being in this positive mindset? Or are you more into this combat mentality? You feel cornered, it's going to be win-lose, I can't let that person win, I'm going to win. And we said again, winning is not a realistic outcome, because the other person, their outcome is not to lose. So are you feeling stressed, scared, angry, wanting to be right, wanting to vent, wanting to get my way, and close to other outcomes? So checking your intention beforehand, and even like regularly checking on that could be interesting. And so asking yourself, what is the real purpose to have this conversation? And asking yourself, and also discussing with the other person beforehand the objective of the conversation. And so, for example, at work or even at home, when you frame the objective of the discussion, if you know it's going to be like a tough discussion and even otherwise, the mindset is when you frame it, and we discuss how important it is to the framing part when you did the NLP. It's like, we are in it together. Let's solve this problem together. So that we have like a better workplace. I'm keen to get your inputs. So being in this, framing it into a collaborative mindset. Huh? So when you invite the person to have the conversation, could be, I want to learn what happened from your perspective. So I want to understand your point of view. I think we have different perspectives, different perceptions, idea. I'd like to hear your thinking on that. Or I want to solve this problem together. How could we work on it together? So I love the third aspect of it. I think the first two could be summarized, like it could be reframed in the collaborative mindset. So if you feel that when you check on yourself, if you feel that the objective is to vent and get angry, which can happen at home or at work, do you really need that conversation? And that's a reality check that we often forget to do. I personally forget to do it, and like, okay, I need to vent. That would be the only objective of the session, like of the conversation. So is it really needed? And always keeping inside the goal. So a bit like what you're doing, like goal checking on coaching. Same when you have this conversation. During the conversation, okay, that's our main objective. Going back to the objective. Okay. So the first one is self-empathy. So we discussed that. So being honest with yourself about what you are feeling. So about, we said like about your needs. So basically looking at the 4 dimensions of the NVC model, that is in the blue bubble. So what are you observing? What are you feeling? So what are you thinking? What are you needing? So the needs part and the request. So what would be your request to address those needs? So be compassionate with yourself, understanding what's happening within you, the feelings that you have, your emotions. Yes.
No, sorry. So I was just sorry. I was interrupted the flow. I'll ask you in a minute. Sorry.
Yeah, you can go. Yeah. Go, Rami.
I was just thinking, can you use this for, well, not just non-violent communication, but if you have coachees who are not, who would like more assertiveness, for example, or would like to, a lot of people talk about, I'd like to find my voice and be able to express and ask something of, let's say, a manager or something. Can you use the same sorts of approaches here?
Yeah, 100%. So when you said like, ask something to my manager, I don't know how to ask or give a feedback, or that's definitely, I wasn't sure when you started if it was more about the leadership aura, then it would be a bit more tricky, but more about like when you need to have give feedback, asking something, have like more challenging communication, 100%. So that's a skill that you can teach your clients 1,000,000% in different ways. I mean, in different with different objectives.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. So, so on the self-empathy, so really like listening to yourself, being very honest with yourself, like, and what are my vulnerable spots? The buttons. How can they push my buttons? So I love the exercise that Risha did, that she mentioned to us before. So being self-aware of those buttons, So I don't think I am self-aware of my buttons. So I think it's a good exercise, especially when it just happened, and that you write down what are those buttons, how can they be pushed. So I love that, and writing it down. Are you being more emotional than the situation wants? So that's very important. I would say 2 weeks ago, so being pregnant, I was like super emotional, and I started like snapping. And so my partner told me like, I feel you, I can understand what you're feeling, but I feel you are a bit more emotional than what the situation needs, and that's and even being pregnant, that I have a very short temper, that was like, oh wow, yes, he's right, actually. So doing that also with yourself, always checking on yourself, and also what personal history is being triggered. So I feel when we are tapping on emotion, on button, the vulnerable spots, those are amazing coaching opportunities for ourselves, like self-coaching, and for other people, basically. So it's something to dig into, I would say. Yeah, so the self-empathy, the self-care, the self-honesty about yourself. Any question on that one? Okay. So receive empathetically. Yanti was mentioning earlier that sometime when you are in a combat mentality, it can be a bit tricky to see the other person point of view. Rami, also you were mentioning like always like keeping in mind to see from the other person point of view. So having this empathic connection and understanding from the heart and not from the brain, basically. So I love like seeing the beauty in the other person, the divine energy in the other person, and the life that's alive in them. So respecting that their well-being, respecting their being, respecting their energy, respecting their needs, their feelings, their what they are seeing. So again, going into those 4 dimensions that you are seeing on the blue bubble. So what are they seeing? Their facts and sometimes their interpretation of facts, but going always back to facts. What they are feeling, what they are needing, and what are their requests. So for example, if you see someone telling you, oh, you never do the dishes, or something that is more general, like a bit you never care, you never care about the relationship, you never care about what's happening in the house. Okay, can you tell me more? Can you be more specific? So we do that also in coaching. Can you be more specific? Can you tell me, can you give me an example? So that they go back to basics, like go back to facts, I would say. So receive empathically, it's about, again, listening from underlying observation, feelings, needs, and requests. Always those 4 dimensions. And a good way to be empathic is to rephrase. So we know that quite well in coaching, and to that they feel that connection. So don't be afraid of using that tip, like rephrasing. Okay, so what I understand what you're saying from what you're saying, I understand that you, and then you tell them and they say, yes, am I correct when I say that? Yes. Okay. And so they will feel understood, they will feel the connection is there, and that would be more constructive. And what is the difference between empathy and sympathy? So sympathy comes from the pathos. Pathos in Greek is more like the feeling, the suffering, and sympathy is suffering with. So feeling with. So sympathy is that you are feeling what the other person is feeling. They are crying in front of you, which makes you cry. So you have sympathy. Empathic is more like a connection with the heart. You are understanding, listening to their whole being, like having that soft focus and being empathic. It doesn't mean that you have to suffer what they are going through. So basically, you don't have to share that suffering or that feeling. So that's about receiving empathically. Does that help? Do you have any comments on that?
Sometimes it's really tough. I'm sorry. Yeah, just that sometimes it's some people it's really tough. You keep asking for more information, especially I'm talking about family and relationship. and the person stops sharing at all.
Yeah.
And whatever you do, it just doesn't happen. And whatever you are trying to be as empathetic as possible and as gentle as possible, and the sharing stops. So I just find myself blocked in that situation. That I can't.
We're gonna go through that. So what do you do? You're blocked, okay? So what, Yanti, Rami, what would you recommend? So if you have someone that is blocked and not sharing anymore, what would be? So we're gonna go through that. What would be
as a coachee or as a someone you're engaging with? Sorry, as someone you're engaging with, right? Who's closed the door, basically.
Yeah. Not a coachee, just in general when we are talking about conversations.
I think, well, if it reaches that, sometimes just a bit of silence and a bit of distance is not a bad thing. To let them, because sometimes when you just keep trying to intervene in that moment, sometimes people just need to be left alone, and then you can come back and revisit. I guess just when temperature, well, things have cooled down a bit.
Yeah.
Or you can ask, what is it, that I can ask them, right? Turn it into a question. What is it that I can do, or what is it that you need for this situation to improve? What is it, just to really flip it on them and just to hear them out. Offer that.
Yeah. Thank you, Ramia. Yanti, any other ideas or?
I would just say, what's on your mind now?
But if they don't want to share,
yeah.
Oh, you can ask, you can try. Yes. Yeah. Another trick is like again going back to observation. So I see you not talking. How should I interpret that? How can I help? Yes. So that could be also like observing and like mirroring this observation to them. How can I interpret that? So that could be another one. Does that help, Risha?
Let me try. Once I try, then I'll tell you if it helps or not.
Okay, perfect. So again, on the receive empathically, so cultivate an attitude of discovery and curiosity. Pretend you don't know anything, because actually we don't know anything, like we don't even know what's going on within us. So how can we interpret what's happening with the other person? So I love this one, like pretend you're entertaining a visitor from another planet. So they are from another planet. They have a different way of looking at life, thinking of things, observing things, and interacting with the world. So they are this Martian, and you shouldn't assume that they are seeing things the same way that you are, because all of us have a different way of seeing things. So we are all in this webinar, but we are all seeing it from a different perspective, and we're all going to get key learnings that are very different from each other. And so don't assume that they're going to see things the way that you see things. So I love this reminder, they are from another planet. And so having this soft focus, again, like what you are doing in coaching, looking at the body language, listening to the unspoken energy. And so what do they really want? What are they really saying? What is beyond the words? So similar to what we're doing in coaching. Yes. And so the third mode is honest and empathic expression. So how do you express yourself? And so Rami, you were saying you have a client that needs to speak to their manager. So this tip is for me the most important. And so it goes through the 4 dimensions. So we said observation, feelings, needs, and requests. Okay, and going in that order. So when I saw, when I heard, so setting the context, again, being super fact-based, I felt that. So that's my feeling, that's my own truth. And when I say that, it supports the connection. It's getting out of our heads, meaning like going with our heart, connecting with the heart. So I felt disrespected. I felt you were not listening to me, or, like the feelings I would need. That's my need. So to support that connection and understand what is important. And then I would ask you to. So that's the request. And again, being very specific in the request. And basically, especially for me, the first two steps are the most important, like the observation and feelings. They should be like a truth that is like your observation and your feelings. And so, if you are very specific, then can be a bit less denied, I would say, and less likely for the people that they feel like you're making them responsible for your feelings, because you're tying it to like a concrete observation. And so when you talk about yourself, it's about your feelings. When you talk about them, it's about facts. Okay, so it's not a generalization when you talk about them, but more about facts. Yeah. And so there's another model. So that's the NVC model. There's another model that may be a bit simpler that I love to use also. That's from Simon Sinek. He calls it the FBI model. So feelings, behavior, and impact. And I feel it's very similar. Maybe it got inspired from NVC, I'm not sure. The way I usually use it, I always start with behavior, then feelings, then impact. So BFI actually. And so behavior is the observation. Feeling is the feeling part. So same first two steps as the NVC. But then instead of going into needs and requests, it goes into impact. So an example of that, going into those three steps: observation. When you arrived 1 hour late at the last two meetings, so that's observation or behavior. Feelings, I felt it was quite disruptive for the team. So that's my feeling. I'm sharing with you my feeling. I'm being honest and sharing with the heart. And the impact of that, I'm worried that the impact, if you continue, people will feel more and more disconnected to you. So looking at the impact, if that behavior continues. And personally, I love that model. I feel it's quite simple, and 3 steps is easy to remember and easy to communicate. So behavior, feelings, and impact. Yeah. And when preparing that for you today, I felt it's quite similar to NVC actually. Yeah. Is it useful? How do you find it?
I like it. This is really quite simple.
Yeah. And so going back to like facts and feelings. Yeah.
I found one other thing I picked up, which was quite useful in managing or communicating in a way to get someone on side, is to not use the term but, and just try and use and as much as possible.
Yeah.
Especially if you're responding to someone. So, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
And you play it back and you say, and I think that, or and my view. So, so it's not like you're excluding what they're saying. That I felt that to be very useful.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. And so this reminds me, so I'm coaching someone going into at the board level, and the mindset when you are a leader is very much to have this aura of positiveness, being the servant leader. There's a book on the servant leader. So you are a leader serving other people, and to limit this combat mentality as much as possible, especially like when you're on boards, when you can compromise or disrespect someone else. And we're focusing a lot on that, on this positivity, and how can you express a point of view without disrespecting the other person. So we went through that, and exactly what you said, Rami. So using the and not the but. So when you have someone giving a point of view and you're at a board meeting and you don't agree with them, instead of saying, oh, that's crap what you're saying, like I don't, I'm the opposite from you, you shouldn't do that, but, you know, like being quite aggressive and combat mentality. It's about okay, I understand your point of view, and I would add that it could be interesting to look at, you know, so to look at this point of view, or at this angle, or and so I think that the NVC is also very useful at a leadership level, and especially at a very leadership level, it's all about the positivity, the bringing people together, like being a leader, like teamwork. And so you cannot have a combat mentality being like a senior manager or leader, basically. Yeah. I hope that helps. Any other comments on that? Okay, so we mentioned, so that's the NLP communication model. And so we mentioned already how difficult it is to know what you are feeling, what you are observing, and how you are interpreting that. And it's even tougher to do that with other persons. So this slide is just to show you how powerless we are in terms of interpreting facts. For those of you who did the NLP, you may have seen that. So basically, there's an event happening, and then you have your own filters going through the five senses, your own filters going through your own values, belief, personal history. And so you would 1,000,000% you would distort, delete, generalize your vision of what's happening of the event. Even if it just happened now, it's going to be like your own interpretation of the world. And also depending on your state, your personal state, are you in a positive mood, are you in negative, like are you pregnant or not, or like how are you feeling right now, and your own physiology, then it will imply like a behavior. So from an external event, there's all those steps that are leading to a behavior. And so imagine all that happening within you. Similar is happening with the other person in front of you, and most of that is super unconscious. So basically, remind yourself we are super powerless about like interpretation of facts, even when they just happen, and even when we try to make them as factual as possible. So this diagram is a bit similar, showing like what your speaker intends to do, what do they say, what is being perceived, and how you react. So I love, like, I'm realizing as we talk that I don't fully understand how you see the problem. So that's something that you can remind yourself. That could be like a thought, or that could be also something that you express. That communication can never ever be like 100% like honest, I would say. Like, even if you want it to be, it cannot be. There will always be this ambiguity, even within yourself, when you're expressing yourself with the other person, they're going through the similar way. And so communication is a two-way thing, but it's even more than that. So challenge your own assumptions and belief. We are always in this fog, in this ambiguity. And so if you feel that you're stuck, you can come back to that. And so I'm realizing as we talk that I don't fully understand how you see the problem. Can we come back to that? So that could be a good tip to use, and showing that to the other person could be calming also. So admitting that you don't know can be a very powerful way to get the conversation back on track. Okay, now, so that's a question that you had. How do we react to thwarting ploys? Very difficult for me to say. So when someone is not talking in front of you, when they are lying, threatening, stonewalling, crying, sarcasm, shouting, so silence, accusing, taking offense. So if we go into the reptilian brain, then there are different ways we could react. So from passive to aggressive. So either we stay passive and we don't do anything, and we cross our arms and like take a step back and don't do anything about it, or we are being super aggressive and okay, let's go and fight. Let's get started on this fight. And so how do you get out of this combat mentality if someone is poking you or is touching like pushing a button, touching a vulnerable spot? And so that was a question that you had earlier, Risha. How do I do when someone stays silent? So a good way to look into that, but Rami mentioned a few other things about like the breathing techniques and giving them space. But if you still want to have this conversation, could be about labeling the observed behavior. So I can see that. I don't know how to interpret your silence. I don't know how to interpret your anger. So so labeling it. So don't be scared to mirror the observed behavior. So can be quite useful. So emotions. So that's the wheel of emotion that you see on the bottom right. So that's a range of emotions that we can go through. Labeling them for yourself and for the other person makes a lot of sense and helps sometime going back to the center. So how much do you want to preserve the relationship? And I guess that's also why it's sometimes feels that we go more into this combating mode in at home because we feel that the relationship is we take it for granted that we can almost play with it and go more into that combating mode. So don't take verbal attacks personally. Help recenter yourself and the other person. I hear you, I understand you, rephrasing. When you have tears, so acknowledging those tears. I understand you, I understand your feelings. Can you tell me more about that? And then when it's about tears, that's something that is quite deep, needs to be addressed. So that's the wheel of emotions. And how to stay unemotional, that can be very tricky to leave your emotions at the door. Rami was mentioning that, breathing, center yourself, and constantly checking on yourself, like are you off center, and choose to return like to calm, to be calm. And those discussions can be very easily emotionally charged. So always keeping your feelings in check, being fact-based, and as Rami was mentioning, slow down, pause. You can pause, ask to reschedule if you feel that's needed. And again, I hear you. So I respect you. And another tip at work could be like to choose a neutral place when you know it's going to be heated. So go into a coffee shop, I would say. Okay, so I wanted to do one exercise. Can we put on the cameras just for 1 minute? Yes. So I think I've never done that exercise with you. So can you put one hand on the chest and one on the stomach? Okay. And then you're gonna breathe very deeply. So close your eyes and breathe very deeply. So breathe in from the nose, breathe out from the mouth. Breathe in, breathe out. And so when you look at those two hands, so keep breathing, do you feel that you're breathing from your chest or are you breathing from your stomach, like from your diagram? So basically, I don't know what's happening with you. Like, do you feel you're breathing from the chest or from the stomach? The right way of breathing is with the stomach, basically, and not with your chest, because with your chest, it's like more like about the stress, like about short breath, and like breathing from the stomach is more like a deeper breath. So that's a check that you can do on yourself quite regularly. And so are you breathing from your stomach or are you breathing from your chest? So can you open your eyes? So I want you to know, are you breathing from your chest or are you breathing from your stomach?
Stomach, usually diaphragm, yeah.
Perfect, diaphragm, perfect. And you, Risha?
Both.
Yeah, it's both. Yeah. No, it's breathing is the most important things we have in life, and that's what keeps us alive. But still, we don't understand it very well. And being centered and like being here, mindful and in the moment, that's one very useful tool. So checking on yourself like quite regularly during the day, and that's like a new sport that you can have, like a new muscle, like and understanding that the breathing should be done mostly from the diaphragm. And because if you're breathing from here, like you're putting a lot of stress here, and it's more like a short breath instead of like breathing quite deep. So Yanti, how did you feel about it?
Yeah, I breathe for both.
Both, huh?
Yeah.
And so try to do that exercise. I feel it's quite useful for your health in general, for your well-being, being centered, and like and try to breathe from the diaphragm. So that's people who are doing yoga, they know it quite well. It's about that diaphragm breathing that doesn't require any effort. So let's do the box technique. For like 2 minutes. So what we're gonna do, you're gonna breathe from the nose, breathe in from the nose for 4 seconds, then you hold, then you breathe out for 4 seconds, then you hold, then you breathe in. And so we're gonna do, let's say, four circles. And so that's to be more centered and feel good. That's a feel good exercise. Okay, so again, let's close your eyes, and so you can put your hands or not. You can also already try to breathe from the diaphragm or not, up to you. Okay, so let's close our eyes and let's breathe in. 3, 2, 1. Let's hold. 3, 2, 1. Breathe out. 3, 2, 1. Hold. 3, 2, 1. Breathe in from the nose. 3, 2, 1. Hold. 3, 2, 1. Breathe out. 3, 2, 1. Hold. 3, 2, 1. Breathe in. 3, 2, 1. Hold. 3, 2, 1. Breathe out. 3, 2, 1. Hold. 3, 2, 1. Breathe in. 3, 2, 1. Hold. 3, 2, 1. Breathe out. 3, 2, 1. Hold. 3, 2, 1. Yes. That's it. How does it feel, guys? How does it feel?
Good. I often do it with my coaches.
Oh, yeah? This technique, exactly?
Yeah.
And do you do it at the beginning of the session so that they feel prepared, or it's mostly during the session? How does it work?
Usually at the beginning, just to clear the noise from before. But sometimes, sometimes if it's a group, I might get them involved in an exercise, particularly if it involves negativity.
Mm-hmm.
And then then I, and then I would say, okay, now after we've had a chat, let's just clear the mind and reset. So it depends. It depends. But I always try and do it at least once.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing. Risha, Yanti, did you find it useful? Or?
Yes, I have a slight headache now.
Yes. So I feel always like a bit like in my own bubble when I do that, and like you're in different world and very peaceful. That's how I feel. Risha, how do you feel?
Yeah, that's how I felt exactly. Calm and peaceful after this.
Perfect. And so as Rami was saying, you can do it with your coaches, and that's also an important technique for NVC before difficult discussion that you can do before that, so you have to feel centered and prepared. You can also do those breathing techniques during the difficult discussion, so you recenter yourself, or you could even try to do it with the person in front of you, depending on the situation. Obviously, at work it might be a bit more tricky to do. And also before you get into a coaching session, so that you feel like it's just like a 1 minute exercise, and sometimes I do it before a coaching session, so I'm like fully here, like mindful and ready for my client. So that's the box technique. So be comfortable with silence. So we talked about emotions, like how to recenter yourself, and be comfortable with silence. So respect moments of silence, same as in coaching. So silence sometimes are ways also to take time to think and let the other person have space and let them think about the next thought. And it helps also diffuse negative emotion. So slowing down, silence, respecting those silence. And as an extrovert can be quite uncomfortable, but if you're dealing with an introvert, they may need that space, and they may feel that you're overbearing if you are too much like talking and not letting the space happening basically. So slow down, respect the silence. Another one that I love here is when you have to deliver difficult news, being courageous about that, honest and fair. And so that's one of my mistakes, like I would always start like, oh, I feel so bad about saying this. This is so hard for me to do. So you shouldn't play the victim. You shouldn't do that. And the worst thing you can ask the other person is to have sympathy for you. You are here to deliver tough news, so it's about like being confident, but in a very empathic way. So giving constructive feedback and giving alternatives. So if you cannot accept an assignment from your boss, you say it's going to be a bit difficult for me to accept that assignment. An alternative could be to do that or that. So yeah, don't play the victim. I put that here because for me, like I feel I'm doing that as a good reminder. So be prepared. So if it's a tough discussion, preparing in negotiation, that's one of the key also, like being super prepared. So those are questions that you can ask yourself. What is the problem? How have I contributed to the problem? What is the other person's point of view? What is the other person's problem? What are their needs, fears? So you could almost map the four dimension of NVC. What are their fears? What are their needs? What would be their request? What would be their observation? What are their feeling? And to mentally practice. So sometimes we do that also in coaching. So the role playing. So someone comes to you, a client comes to you, they need to have a difficult conversation at home or with their boss. And so you say, okay, I'm going to play your boss, you're going to play yourself. And then we can also do a role reversal. And so they can step in the shoes of the other person, of the boss, for example, and you play them. And so being prepared for that. Don't script, so that like in coaching, shouldn't have like a script, and avoid oversimplification, avoid the combat mentality, respect the other person, respect their point of view. So that's on the homework. So as a conclusion, what we've learned today, when you are caught off guard, you're more likely to fall back into old habits, to ineffective habits, like combat mentality, and so that you, like for example, when you feel you are cornered, winning is not a realistic outcome. So stop thinking that it's like a win-lose, or that you have to win. So you have to positively frame what is the purpose of the conversation. So together we're going to resolve that issue. I want to see your point of view, so positively frame. The 4 steps of NVC: observations, so being fact-based, the feelings, the needs, and the request. FBI, so for me I use it BFI, so behavior. When you do that, I feel the impact would be, so behavior, feelings, impact. The 6 human needs, and I'll send you the links that you should watch if you want. And I love this sentence: I can never fully understand my counterpart's assumption, belief, an assumption, so there's a typo, nor can he or she understand mine. So knowing that you have like expectation is that you have someone from another planet in front of you, and that you cannot understand their process of thinking. React to thwart employees by labeling them, slowing down, respecting silence. Be empathic, not only with the other person, but also with yourself, what's happening within your body. Being mindful, being centered, and don't play the victim. That's also quite important. Any feedbacks on that? Has it been useful? Like, what has been useful? Keen to get your feedbacks.
Well, thanks, Leah. I thought it was really comprehensive. Lots of really useful tips. So yeah, great. Thank you.
Oh, perfect. Thank you, Ramia. Anything in particular that was useful that would be like a good takeaway for you?
Yeah, I like the NVC approach. I think that's, just going through that and working through the different aspects is really useful.
No, perfect.
Both in my own situations, in engaging with others, but also as a means of, working with my coaches and giving them a framework.
Yes, exactly. You can share that framework with them, definitely.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Rami. Yanti, Risha, was it useful? Anything that, is there like something that your biggest takeaway or breakthrough?
Not winning.
Yes.
No, that's the only one I can take away, which is really good. It's a different perspective.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. It's not about winning, and especially at work, if you are in this winning mentality, then you're gonna lose because you'll be seen as the combating one, as not respecting the other people. So yeah, perfect. And comes back to what you were saying earlier, Yanti. That was your mentality can be quite combating, and that fighting that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yanti. Risha?
Yeah, quite a few things actually. One, this model where feeling, behaviors, impacting PI, but in the order as you have written: behaviors, feelings, and impact. Because, that's probably a better start rather than saying I'm feeling bad because you did this. Yeah, so I like your way of first stating the behavior. And another thing which is really, really interesting is, I don't know how it will work. I'm going to use it. Labeling the behavior and stating it to the person that I can see and I can feel that you're feeling this emotion or you are feeling this way, but I'm not able to understand how to interpret this behavior or this feeling of yours. Can you please elaborate, explain? I'm trying to go more by starting with the behavior. And using and avoiding but.
Yes.
I just actually can see the impact of removing but and replacing but with and. So big. It's really, really huge impact. Yeah.
It's huge impact, huh? It's
Like you're supporting the person in continuation, not really stopping in there and telling your point then.
Yeah, and so that's a technique that you have. The other person in front of you may not have this technique. So also like, especially at home, like how you want them to also understand that and the value of that, and educating them on that, or being the role model of that. So it can be a very interesting journey. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you very much, guys. I managed to finish on time. I'm so glad. Thank you very much.
Wishing you a lovely holiday.
Oh, thank you.
Have a really good break.
Have a good break.
Thank you. I love interacting with you. It's always an honor speaking to you guys and getting your insights. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good end of day.
Bye.
Thank
you. Bye.